Sometimes you come across a game that you get truly interested in by total accident. You see a trailer, an image, maybe you see it on the shelf of your local video game store. But for whatever reason, you never really pick up the title. That could be just due to timing, the price, or not even sure if you're going to enjoy the title. But one day, fate throws you a bone, and you can finally sit down and play this title that's always been at the back of your mind. You're not sure if you're going to enjoy it or not, but hell, you have nothing else to do, right? And this happened to me. And that game in question was
The Wonderful
I've always seen this game on my radar. I remember back when it was first announced for the Wii U. It had the very interesting art style and the weird mechanic of using the gamepad to play it. But I never got to play the game. First of all, not having a Wii U stifled my chance to play it. But then a remaster got announced for it and made me question if I should pick up the game here and there. But as the years went on, I never really had time to play it. I wasn't sure if I was going to really enjoy it, but it always sat there at the back of my mind. So when PlayStation finally changed their PlayStation Plus service, one of the titles I first saw on that service and was the most excited to play was The Wonderful 101. But what I found was that this was not only one of Platinum's hidden gems, but an overall good game that many should seek out to play. But before how we talk about this is Platinum's hidden gem, we have to go back and figure out how this title came to be. The game was developed by Platinum Games and released in 2013. It was directed by Hideaki Kamiya, who was coming off the very successful Bayonetta, and produced by Atsushi Inaba, who was coming off many successful titles such as Vanquish, Anarchy Reigns, and Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. Two had worked together previously on many titles such as the Beautiful Joe and Okami series. Development began during the lifetime of the Wii U. Kamiya wanted to bring together a group of popular and iconic video game characters together in one game. But when it came down to it, gamers might have prioritized one character over the other since they all have favorites. The idea was quickly scrapped, and instead they decided to have all the characters on screen at once. Kamiya even chose Mario as the owner of the Unite hand and Link as the owner of the Unite sword. But when pitched to Nintendo if they could use their characters, Nintendo questioned if they could fundamentally get the elements of all these characters together in one title, and that the title seemed really similar to Smash Bros. The project was then put on hold for a while as Kamiya decided to work on other projects, but he would quickly return to this project and slowly greenlight it, and decided to use his own characters for the title and pitch it to Nintendo with an American superhero comic book design and a Japanese transforming theme, with the heroes uniting to transform into various weapons to help in combat. This transforming idea would come from Kamiya's childhood inspirations from a Japanese children's book We Turn Into Monsters, as well as a Dutch-Italian book called Swimmy, as they both consist of a group of characters assembling into large objects. The idea of the 5 heroes was eventually expanded into 100, as Kamiya was fixated on the number, but when a client came to them and asked if they could make the title more creative, Kamiya decided to change the number to 101, signifying that the player is joining the roster. The game would release on the Wii U and would be well received and regarded as one of the best titles on the Wii U, but it would fail to meet sales expectations. This was probably due to that it was exclusive only to the Wii U, and only sold 79,000 units in Japan and the US. And this was quite a shame to both Platinum Games and Kamiya, as the title took almost 2 times the amount of resources and manpower as it did for Bayonetta. But even though the game failed, Kamiya always thought it deserved a second chance. And this is where Kickstarter comes in. In 2018, Kamiya stated that he had ideas for a possible Nintendo Switch port, But when they approached Nintendo, who was the publisher and co-owner of the copyright and also owner of the trademark for the remaster, Nintendo only wanted the game to be exclusive to Switch. But Platinum wanted the title to see more variety and release to other consoles. But Nintendo actually granted them to do it and that they wouldn't be able to publish the remaster. This gave Platinum the idea to self-publish the title, something which they've been wanting to do for a while. So they decided to use Kickstarter to help mitigate the risk involved with self-publishing and see how popular the title was. This seemed to be the right move, as within hours the game surpassed its goal for all 3 versions, and achieved several of its stretch goals, concluding with at least over 2 million raised for the game. The remaster would release in North America on May 19th, in Europe on May 22nd, and in Japan on June 11th, 2020.
Now what?
I believe that they just unite morphed!
Bring them on! Me, my Valiantium blade, and alien make 3. Once I cut them in half, it makes 4. If I cut them again, you're gonna get like 6? 6!
You've managed to fend off my attack. Most admirable.
Identify yourself.
At last, I lay eyes on the pathetic planet CHIQ. What do you call it? Dearth?
Dearth? Wait, Blue, is that like the official name?
Are you kidding me?
Ah, did I make an error? I could have sworn that the guidebook says,
Hand over that book immediately.
Dude, forget the book.
You are someone of some authority then? I can see it in your eyes.
I'm Wonder Red, Special Combat Agent in charge. Sentinel's Planetary Secret Service.
Now that we know the backstory of the Wonderful 101, what is the story actually about? Well, you take control of Wedge Westwood, or Wonder Red as he is known, the leader of the Wonderful 101s. When an alien threat known as Gethjerk starts attacking Earth, you now have to gather the rest of the Wonderful Ones and save Earth. Your team is comprised of various different colors of Wonderful Ones that you have to face. First, there's Wonder Blue, a police detective, Wonder Green, a gun expert, a fashion model, Wonder Pink, a Russian soldier known as Wonder Yellow, Wonder White, a ninja in training, and an ingenious video game player known as Wonder Black. Together, supported by your robot companion P-Star and commander of the Sentinels Lawrence Nelson, as long as the Virgin Victories operator Alice McGree, you will now battle the alien threat and save Earth. While battling this alien threat, you'll also come across the mysterious Prince Vulcan, who seems to be at the head of this alien threat. Just who is he, and what do the aliens want with Earth in the first place? Now the story is very simple. Aliens come to attack Earth, and you have to save them. This very much feels as a Saturday morning cartoon, with the cheesy dialogue and the over-the-top action scenes. But underneath this story, there's actually some good heart to it, and what surprised me was some of the depth and character that the story had. As I was playing through, I felt there wasn't going to be much to the story, as Platinum games aren't really known for their story and much more for their gameplay. But this was something completely different. Every character had something unique and different. Every villain was interesting and fun, and even Prince Vulcan and the other characters had some good backstories to them. There's a lot of lore in this game which took me by surprise, but I had a really good fun with it. A lot of these characters had experienced loss, and there was some depth I didn't expect into it. Wonder Red plays it as the typical hero character who even has cheesy intros for everyone he meets, but he even had some sad backstory. There was Wonder Blue, who is very much the macho character, loner type, but he had some real interesting backstory. And even the villains had some really good moments and heartfelt moments throughout it. The story even had some good twists and turns towards the end that really brought this all together. But the story also had some real good funny moments. When bosses are introduced, the fights between those, the moments in between, and while there was some I didn't really enjoy, I overall really loved this story. It was fun, it was fast-paced, it was simple, but it was also heartwarming. After I finished the game, I really sat back and thought to myself, there was nothing super crazy with the story, but even though it was simple, it was heartwarming, and by the end of it, I really did have a good time with the title. Throw in a lot of the comedy and a lot of the funny villains and the crazy bosses and the over-the-top American-style superhero comic book with a transforming anime style. What you get is a story that's surprisingly really good. Overall, it's fun, simple, but enjoyable. And while I haven't played every Platinum game under the sun, I do think that this is one of their best games when it comes to storytelling and its mixture of gameplay. I also have to commend a lot of the music and the voice talent in the game. When it comes to the English voices, they're all pretty good. This is a worldwide cast, as many of the characters come from various countries all over the world, and a lot of the voice actors do a really good or sufficient job to try to represent those countries, although I do think that Green's accent is a bit much. I especially love the music in this game. It just ties the whole superhero thing together. There's a lot of saxophone and trumpets and bombastic sounds in the background that really do help you feel like you're being a hero in this game. And I also love the main theme that gets played in the background whenever you go into your super ultra mode. This just brings it all together. With the visuals, the music, and the voice, it just brings this whole package together nicely.
Flying object incoming.
We are not blind.
So, the sniveling worms dare to defy the guild of evil aliens terrorizing humans with gigawatt bombs, energy beams, ray guns, and killer lasers? This time, the mighty Lambo will wipe their simpering smiles from the face of the planet!
When it comes to gameplay, it's the standard Platinum format, fast-paced action combat with dodging and timing mechanics overall. It also has the same difficulty as Platinum as well, but there's something that makes this game completely different than any other Platinum game coming before it or after it. And that is the drawing mechanic, or the Unite Morphs as they call it in the game. While you can just normally fight combat with normal punches and fists, in this game you must draw certain shapes to make weapons that will help you in combat. These are called the Unite Morphs, allowing for the creation of these weapons. Each hero has different weapons which are tied directly to them, such as Wonder Red being able to make a fist, Wonder Blue a sword, Wonder Pink the whip, Wonder Green a gun. And with all of these weapons, they all require different shapes that you have to draw. For example, to make the fist, you'll have to draw a circle, a straight line for the sword. For the hammer, you need to draw a circle with a line at the end of it. And for the whip, you'll need to draw a squiggly line. Now, learning the drawing mechanic is essential to the game. It'll make or break you. If you get really good at it, the game will be a breeze. If you don't get any good at it, the game will suck. And you'll need to use these weapons in combat, as enemies do have weaknesses and strengths to certain weapons. Take enemies that have spikes, for example. They are invulnerable to other weapons except for the whip. Once you use the whip, you can remove the spikes from the enemy and then you are able to attack them freely. Or enemies such as the Panther, which can run really fast. You'll need to make the time bomb, which is a very complicated shape to make in the first place. You'll need to throw it, which slows them down, and then create another weapon to attack them. This happens very often in combat, and you will have to be very fast in drawing these different weapons. Every weapon has strengths and weaknesses, and making these weapons won't be easy. As I said before, adapt or die in this game, and where it's all about skill in other Platinum games, it's all about how good you can draw and how fast you can draw, and also how quick you can bring out certain weapons. The question now becomes, how do you draw these weapons? Well, when the game was originally released on the Wii U, you could use the gamepad to make the different shapes and weapons in the game. But since the game has now been reformatted and changed for consoles, you can now use the right analog stick or the PlayStation touchpad on the controller. And just to make one thing clear, the touchpad sucks. Seriously, it's too small. It's better to use just the right analog stick. It's the best way to draw, and it's the easiest way to draw. Once you make your shape, you then push circle to activate it, and then you bring out the weapon. Now, the game does offer you some leeway when it comes to drawing. It color codes the certain weapons that has to be placed, so it makes it easier for you to understand what you're going to draw, but it doesn't make it any easier. In the heat of combat, you'll probably draw the wrong shape many times, and as I said, these shapes get very complex. Drawing the time bomb is really difficult, as you have to draw it, switch to another weapon, and then attack with another weapon. It gets really difficult. And it doesn't change as the game goes on, it just gets even more difficult. This adding in various other techniques that you can find and train by buying in the store doesn't make this game any easy. Instead, it makes it even more difficult. You'll find yourself overwhelmed a bunch of times when it comes to the combat if you haven't drawn the right weapon or you have to make changes on the fly. Many times areas are very small and enclosed when it comes to the combat, so you're going to have to find yourself moving very much a lot. Now there are tips and tricks that you can find to make yourself drawing a lot easier, such as being able to break up any drawing by just dashing, or by cancelling out of the drawing if you see you quickly made it wrong. Whenever you do start to draw something, time slows down for a bit, so it gives you an option to draw. And also, you don't actually have to draw on the screen. You'll find yourself drawing a lot of the time off the screen, and it doesn't matter where you point. As long as you're able to make the shape, you'll be able to make the weapon. This does help in some cases, but it's not a be-all end-all. Whenever you find yourself have a new weapon that you have to draw, I recommend practicing it first. As much as you can, get used to the animation, get used to how you're going to draw it, because that will be the life or death when it comes to the next section of the game. I found that the best weapon to make was the sword. All you have to do is just draw a straight line, and the bigger you make the weapon, the more reach it has and the more damage it does. This applies to every weapon. The bigger they are, the more damage they do, but it does come with a drawback. The bigger you make the weapon, the more powerful it becomes, but it also slows you down and makes you more vulnerable. The moment you get hit, it breaks apart all the citizens that you have saved and destroys the weapon. Now you have to either run around aimlessly waiting for your citizens, or by picking them up on the floor. And like I said before, getting hit in this game is the one thing you don't want to do. And this is where the citizens come into play. Throughout each level, you'll find yourself citizens that are in need of rescuing. Now you have to save these citizens to not only help in making weapons, but making larger weapons as well. Saving citizens and collecting batteries, which act as your energy gauge, all plays into the combat as well. Whenever you see citizens that need saving, you draw a line or a circle around them, then you add them to your wonderful ones. You need to make at least 100 of these citizens within each level to get a very good rating. Now once in combat, you use your citizens to make these weapons. Like I said before, the bigger the weapon, the more citizens you'll use, but get hit and all the citizens will scatter, leaving you completely defenseless. Seriously, you can't do anything. You can still punch and kick, but it's totally pointless. If you do have some citizens left over, you'll be able to make another weapon, but if there is no citizens, you'll have to run around and pick them up, or you'll have to wait for them to recover, allowing you then just to run around like a headless chicken. And again, the citizens and the batteries play into all, as the batteries require as your energy meter. Make a big weapon, drains a lot of battery. Use other techniques, drains battery. Everything you do will drain your battery, which is why you have to wait for it to charge if you want to do other stuff. So this all becomes a big management game when it's in combat. This isn't like any other Platinum games where you're mostly just focusing on blocking and dodging. Hell, you don't even get the block and dodge in the beginning. You actually have to buy that from the store. And this will be another tip of mine, to buy the block and dodge first from the store. Trust me, it'll make your experience way better. But all of those require citizens, and all of those require timing as well. If you time it just right, you'll be able to dodge out of the way of a move. It even allows you to close in the gaps. Blocking is another important part. Block at the right time, and your enemy will get stunned. Block at the wrong time, and you'll still find yourself being hit. You can even deflect weapons like this. Now, citizens are not only used to make weapons, but they can also have their own attacks. You can use a team attack, which basically uses the citizens that you have to help stun the enemy or make it easier for you to attack them. Citizens can also use weapons. Citizens can also be used as secondary weapon attacks, such as you could have a sword out and then have the AI, or have your citizens, use the gun as well. This time you just press a different button to make them use those weapons at logical time. Again, the entire combat becomes a management system that is not seen, I think, in any other Platinum game. I have to manage everything, and I have to make sure that I don't get hit at the same time. And it doesn't get any easier. It's got that old school difficulty that Platinum has. The weapons can also be used for puzzles at certain points in the game. The sword can open up doors, the claw can climb up against the wall. You can even use the fist to turn dials. You'll probably do that a lot in the game. Now, besides drawing the weapons, there's one other thing you draw in the game as well, and that's the glider. And trust me, the glider to me was one of the most difficult things to draw in the game. There are even certain points in the game where it completely slows down. I like to call it quick time draw event, where they will yell out what you need to draw and give you a certain time limit. In this time limit, you have to use as many citizens as you can to get the max points. And there was a point where I had to draw the glider in this section, and I was really having trouble with the glider. Trust me, I died like 3 or 4 times, maybe even 5 or 6 times to drawing this stupid glider. It's so difficult to draw that glider because it's a weird triangle thing. The bomb is very hard to draw. The hammer also isn't any easier. But I also found trouble drawing the whip because once I got access to the claw, the whip and the claw kind of have the same drawing pattern. So you can find yourself trying to draw the whip, but then maybe you draw the claws instead. Now I know I spoke a lot about combat, but there's a lot to go into with combat. It's a very complex system that you gotta manage all over the place. As you can see, after every combat encounter, you'll get a ranking depending on how good you did. This will depend on the damage you've taken, the damage you've given, and the time it took to defeat the enemies. This all plays into the ranking at the end of the level, like many Platinum games, or if you're very familiar to Bayonetta, which has the same ranking system. You'll also be ranked on the number of citizens saved, any secret missions that you found throughout the level, and of course how well you did during the level as well. This gives you different trophies that you can earn at the end of the level, from being very good to being very bad. And trust me, trying to gold this or even platinum all of these levels is really tough. Speaking about the levels, each level is different and unique. They can last sometimes around 30 to 40 minutes, maybe even an hour sometimes, and each level contains numerous secrets and collectibles for you to find. These can be civilians, items, or just fighting random secret encounters. There are 9 operations with a prologue and an epilogue, with most operations being split into 3 missions, an A mission and a B mission, with the final mission being the big boss battle. And these boss battles are fantastic. These things can be crazy. Some of them are really difficult because you don't know exactly what you have to do at first. So you'll have to probably die a lot of times before you figure out, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. So find yourself in these boss battles are very memorable, but they are very tough. I will say this, that Operation 7 was the worst one. It was the most annoying, it had the worst platforming, and it had the worst fighting in the game. Seriously, that was the worst one. Very simple, but they hide lots of collectibles and secrets for you to find. This game can be a completionist nightmare, as finding some of these are really difficult. You'll have to look at random stuff off the screen, or maybe just look at a building and see a window open and send your civilians in there. It's truly insane. So here are some of the collectibles you can find. They are hero hearts. Finding 4 of these will increase your health. They are wonderful in gift jerk files that provide you with some lore and background on the characters. They are wonderful figures and even bottle caps to unlock special characters. These require much more of doing certain things to activate them. Then there are 2 special missions to find in every level, and these are not only tough, like really tough, but really difficult to find. And lastly, there are 5 hidden platinum coins that are hidden throughout every level. These are the hardest ones to find, and sometimes require you to draw precise shapes that are sometimes impossible to do, no matter how good you are at drawing. Seriously, finding some of these are totally pointless as well. Like the hidden platinum coins don't really do anything at all. And this game very much prides itself on replayability. You'll have to go back a lot of times, play the levels again once you've unlocked other heroes. As from the very start, on like the first level, you'll find things that you cannot interact with or do because you're missing that certain hero's ability. So I do recommend finishing the game first and then going back through it, as you can replay any level at any time. There are also items in the game which can heal you and attack enemies for you, or even save you from death. There are also items that you can use in the crafting menu. If you've played Bayonetta, kind of the same crafting system that it has. Use a certain number of items to craft a particular item, but I recommend just making the credit card, as it is the best thing to make out of anything you have. As with the credit card, you can buy basically anything in the store without having to pay for it, and no matter how much it is. And if you can see some of the store prices, they are really expensive, and the game will want you to replay the game a lot just to buy some of these techniques. So if there is something that you look at you really want, I do recommend buying it with the credit card. Simplest thing to do. Now, if you have been watching the gameplay, you've probably seen a small little screen at the bottom right hand of the corner. This is the second screen, which was originally the Wii U's gamepad screen that you would have when the game was released on it. This screen was basically used for seeing your heroes and used as the drawing pad. Now, this is the one thing besides the drawing that really irritates a lot of people, as the screen is constantly there no matter what. Now, you can turn it off by just pressing the touchpad, but it's always there and sometimes it just automatically turns on. The sad thing is, it doesn't really show a lot of important information. While it does show the special civilians you've saved and the different weapons you've unlocked, there really isn't much there. The second screen is basically the drawing pad, and I will say that's more useful, as it allows you to precisely see what you're drawing, so it makes it easier, especially if you have to make off-screen drawings. This makes it much easier. Now, you can turn the screen off, as I said, and you can even change the transparency of the screen and move it anywhere you want. There's also a dual mode incorporated where it puts the second screen and the game all at once on there, but it's totally worthless. It's bad. Don't use it at all. I did mostly have the second screen turned off. I hardly had it on. Whenever it popped up, I just switched it off. The only time I really used the second screen was when I was in the store, because it does provide you with other information so you know what you're buying. Otherwise, when I was in the game, I hardly use it. Lastly, whenever you unlock civilians, you unlock special, wonderful ones that basically have different stats than your normal heroes. But I never changed to any of them because it was kind of pointless. Where the special, wonderful ones do come in is in the wonderful codes section. Now, these were codes that were released during the game's run, and you can find them very easily on the internet. But using these codes unlocks special characters and special items and weapons that you can use, some that were never available in the previous title. So like the villains and other characters you can find. But most importantly, you can also unlock characters from the Bayonetta series, like Bayonetta herself, and she even brings in her wedge time ability, such as being able to dodge right before the attack will slow down time. These are the most powerful characters you'll find in the game. You'll be able to charm enemies, and you'll even be able to transform into a giant Unite morph. I recommend not unlocking these codes until you finish the game the first time, because not only do this spoil the game for you by making it really easy, but it can also spoil some of the characters that you'll meet down the line of the game. Once you finish the game, you get access to the hard mode, and you also unlock a new game plus mode. There's also a multiplayer mode where you can play cooperative with friends, but I didn't delve into any of that. You also unlock a gallery, which gives you access to the music, art, 3D models, and various things like that. While this game is great, there is some issues that do hold it back from everyone enjoying it. I'm not going to lie, the drawing mechanic will hold a lot of players back, as some will never get used to it and just turn off from it. The game also has a weird length. I thought I was going to get at least 10 to maybe 12 hours out of the title, but I got at least 15 to almost 20 hours in. There's a weird pacing issue with the game. I felt like halfway through the story it came to a natural conclusion, and then they added in like at least 3 or 4 more hours, maybe even 5 hours of extra content, which didn't feel like it needed to be there. Don't get me wrong, the ending is great, it just didn't feel like it needed to be there. Another big issue I had was whenever you entered into a building. This is probably the worst part about this game. You would enter into a building and then the camera would zoom in all the way to your face. It made it really difficult to see, especially when you needed to climb stairs and complete a puzzle. It was just terrible. I could hardly ever see anything in it. It was one of the worst moments in it. Thankfully, it doesn't happen that much. I also, for me personally, couldn't get the timing of the block right, which annoyed me quite a bit. I don't know what it was. Personally, maybe it was just me, but sometimes I would block and it wouldn't even matter. I would still get hit. Even with attacks which I knew I could block, I would just get hit. I don't know what it was. I just always messed up the timing of the block. So if you did have issues with it, do tell me. Another thing that could be frustrating is the large amount of controls that you have to remember. Trying to learn everything is great, but if you don't play this game constantly, like right in one sitting, or maybe play it over a week, you'll forget very quickly of this game. So adapt to get better. Overall, I love this game. It might not be for everyone, but I do think this is Platinum's hidden gem and probably some of their best when it comes to music, art, voice acting, but story-wise, it's some of the best. When I finished it, I really wanted to go back and play some of those levels again and just experience the world of Wonderful 101 again. Overall, if you're looking for a brand new game that's just as tough as many of Platinum's other titles, but totally unique and different in every way, then I recommend picking this up. It's available right now on PlayStation Plus Essentials, and if you have a PlayStation Plus account, you can download it right now. It truly is Platinum's hidden gem.
Wonderful 100. Diplomacy fails again. Team, engaging unlimited form. Team, unite up!
Roger.